up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with our Week 7 college football recap. We had a crazy weekend last weekend. We got the whole crew here. Michael's with us, Ryan's with us, and a loaded college football slate to talk about. There's nothing better than that on this fine Wednesday evening, Thursday evening when you're probably watching this. Without further ado, boys, we got so much to talk about. Let's just get straight into this because we all know where I'm going with this first game that we're headlining the weekend with. Top 10 matchup as Washington took on Oregon. It was a 7v8 matchup in Washington. Washington prevailed 36-33 off of a missed last-second field goal by Oregon. Bo Nix had a great game, 337 for 2 touchdowns. Penix outmatched him with that last-second touchdown. He had himself a day. And, we saw both teams play now. This was in Washington. Of course, they're going to get a boost. Oregon did cover the spread. Both teams look good. No team looked bad. Okay, I know, Oregon lost and they'll get their fair share of heat for that. They still looked really good. All right, so it was a pretty even matchup. I think this isn't the last time we'll be seeing this. But that does bring me to my first question, though. Michael, I'm going to go to you first, too, on this one. Can Washington, after a performance like this, seeing the offensive firepower that they have, even the capability of the defense to hang in there with that potent Oregon offense, you think this team is capable of, at the very least competing with a Michigan or a Georgia in the playoffs? But, are they capable of even beating them maybe?
So here's the answer I'll give you. And I think it's, I don't know, as of 10 seconds prior to me thinking about this, really, I would have told you no. I would have said, Washington, they're a good team. They're solid, but I don't see them ever upsetting a Michigan or Georgia. But I think this is the first year I'll be willing to say this on the record that I don't think there's any surefire teams that are going to win any game against another competitive team.
I agree.
Right? Last year we saw Michigan lose to TCU, right, in the playoff on the biggest stage, right? Georgia is now without Brock Bowers, and they haven't looked great all season, right? They haven't looked amazing outside of a couple games. I think this Washington offense is legit. I think Michael Penix Jr. is a beast. He's insane.
Has to be the Heisman favorite. We'll talk about that more later.
Yeah, and for the longest time, I saw this agenda earlier today, and all day I was just in the back of my head, there's no shot Washington or the Huskies have any shot against Michigan or Georgia. They're just going to demolish them up front, right? But it's not about that, right? Oregon, and this is also going back to the last segment or last week when I made the prediction that Oregon was going to kind of show them up. I was wrong. I mean, Oregon played well, sure, but I did not know Washington was like that. They got some dogs in that team, especially that wide receiving core. They're legit.
Without their second best receiver, by the way. They did this without, I believe his name is McMillan.
Yeah, McMillan, yeah.
He wasn't even there. So they were going to Jalen Polk and of course, Romo Dunze, however you pronounce it. So they were just going to those two. They didn't even have their second guy there and still did all this.
I think in any other year, I'd probably say no. But I think in this year specifically, where we, have seen Harbaugh struggle on the biggest stages, we've seen how much Georgia's reliant on Bowers.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting to see what that team looks like going forward without him.
Ryan, what do you think? Can this Washington team compete for a title against these two big dogs?
I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, I've said it in the previous weeks. Michigan and Georgia haven't really proved it yet. And the thing is, for Georgia, being without they basically run Bowers as like Kelsey in the Mahomes offense.
Yeah, 100%.
He's their number one receiver, even though he's the tight end. And they don't have that. It's, I think they're going to struggle for the rest of the year. Now, they have a pretty favorable schedule, but I don't know if I see them doing the three-peat now without Bowers.
And mind you, he'll be back at some point, but you're going to be without him for a significant stretch.
Yeah.
Any game without Bowers for this Georgia team playing any competent opponent is going to be at the very least intriguing, much less probably close. Fairly, unless this offense can really take it into a gear that we haven't seen them go into before. But to answer the question overall, I 100%. I think we're all kind of on the same page here. There's no reason they can't compete. Like I said, they did this without their second best receiver. They don't have too much of a running game, so they're doing most of this just purely through the air. I've seen people call Penix like a bigger, stronger, Tua in a sense, in the way they run the offense with Washington and just the way the Penix plays and the fact he's left-handed. It's a potent offense. This team has guys. We talk about the trenches, Michael, and that was the biggest difference. Washington has at least one, but you might have multiple NFL caliber offensive linemen on the team. I don't want to butcher the name, but they got a guy who's projected very early in the draft at that on the line at tackle. So that they're going to compete in the trenches. They're going to compete through the air. And we always talk about like, can they compete with these defenses here and there? And while of course defense is important, at the end of the day it wins championships. How many times do we see these playoff matches come down to 40 something to 40 something? You mentioned Michigan, TCU, even Ohio State and Georgia last year. That was a high scoring game. So how many of these games have we seen be high scoring affairs to the point where it's like maybe Washington's defense is a bit suspect, but if that offense is going to keep up in the playoffs, everything's off the table because we've seen these games just come down to firefights, right? So I mean, I don't know. I think they're going to hang in there with anybody.
Yeah, I think we're beyond the days of, really, really formidable defenses. I mean, the most recent one was Georgia a couple of years back, but since then, we haven't seen it.
Both Georgia's teams that have won the title.
I mean, not last year necessarily.
I mean, they held them to 7 points, I guess. But, it's...
I mean, Ohio State also dropped 40 points.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think we've seen, like, a super, super dominant force defensively. And I think that in big-time games, you got to lean a little bit more towards a high-flying offense. Versus a formidable defense. And also on the note of Brock Bowers' injury, I know they're saying 4 to 6 weeks. This might be a hot take, but if I'm Bowers, I really got to consider sitting the rest of the season. You're already a solidified first round pick after recovering from your injury. All you're really doing there is risking re-injury. You have 2 titles. No one's questioning your significance in the football field. At the end of the day, if I'm Bowers, I'm strongly considering not coming back and playing.
I don't know if he personally would do that. It just doesn't seem like that's the kind of guy he is. And 4 to 6 weeks, like I guess maybe if it's closer to the 6 than it is to the 4.
I mean, but, six puts you right at the end of the season, right?
Yeah, if it is 6 and extends past, but if this is like you're questionable by the 3rd week and by the 4th, you should be back.
I agree. I think
I don't know. I couldn't see him sitting out the rest of the year. I think it might almost backfire, and he might get strange looks from NFL scouts for doing something like that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, but you have to look at last year too. I mean, there was guys sitting for weeks upon weeks, just like with, way less of injuries. But
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, if I was in his shoes as well, I would obviously want to play too. But you have to consider like the logical, money involved and stuff. So.
Overall, though, this is the parity year. This is a year of a lot of parity in the in college football as a whole. I love this Washington team. I think this offense is great. I don't think we should count Oregon out at all because, like we've said, the past few weeks on this channel, a one-loss Pac-12 champ will probably make the playoffs. There should be no reason that a one-loss Pac-12 champ does not make the playoffs. So Oregon's still very much in it. I like their schedule the rest of the way. And if they beat Washington, next time it's not going to be in Washington. So we'll see what happens then. Let's not count them out. But with that being said, staying in the Pac-12, Notre Dame and USC went at it. This was a big game for USC to see if they could right those defensive struggles. They did the exact opposite. They let a lethargic offense who was barely getting above 20 in most games against real opponents put up 48 points. Sam Hartman, Estime, this young receiving core of Notre Dame tore them up. Defense helped. They got a scoop and score at the end. They created a lot of turnovers, but they won 48-20. Caleb Williams threw 3 picks, a whole bunch of turnovers, and just a horrible performance on both sides of the ball for this USC team. And it just kind of proves what we were all worrying about with this team. I mean, every year it's the same thing. All offense, no defense. Lose the biggest game of the year. And I know I said a one-loss Pac-12 champ is, can make the playoffs. But this team, I think they're out of it because I don't think they're going to win the rest of the year. And we talked about this last week, but, just for the sake of it, to pull up their schedule again and tell you the gauntlet that they run the rest of the year. I don't know how many times we've been over this. It just feels like beating a dead horse. But they play Utah this week. Then they get California off, and then home versus Washington, at Oregon, home versus UCLA. Those are your 4 of your last 5 games are ranked opponents. I don't know. It's a gauntlet, and I don't think they're gonna win. I don't think they can come out with a positive record out of that stretch. Frankly, I think they lose at least 3 of those games. I don't know, and they'll be very well done for the year. And I don't know. This brings up a question about Caleb. Is he still the QB1? Is this proving something that there should be cause for doubt while we're all hyping him up? And then, I mean, I know I just answered my opinion, but do you guys even think this is a Pac-12 championship team still? There's a whole lot of questions after this game, and just one by one, just tell me what you guys think. Michael, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. You look at their schedule. It is a gauntlet. Relative to the Pac-12. I mean, you play what's in my opinion the other four best teams in the Pac-12. You haven't
Yeah,
even played yet,
100%. You can
right?
you can argue like Oregon State could fit in with one of those teams, like them and Utah. They did beat Utah head to head, whatever that's worth.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
still, 4 of the 5 best Pac-12 teams.
yeah, and it's yeah, I don't think Lincoln Riley. I think that Lincoln Riley's fatal flaw has been the defensive side of the ball. It's been his flaw when he was at Oklahoma, and it's continued to haunt him. He hasn't hired a DC that's been able to do what they need. And when you have a guy like Caleb Williams as a USC fan, it's got to be so frustrating because you can put up numbers every game, but if you're letting Notre Dame drop 48 on you,
It's unacceptable.
you have a problem. You have a big problem, and I don't think they're getting out of the Pac-12. I mean, I don't think they're going to play in that game.
Yeah, I don't even think they'll make it there.
I did some looking at some of the schedules, and I still think Oregon has a shot.
Oh,
They don't-
100%. Oregon has, in my opinion, the best shot.
still after the loss.
I mean, look, all they have to do is get to the game against Washington again. And then, look, Washington won by the 3 points that are given to you for being at home, right? Like, he did miss that field goal. That could have gone to overtime and been totally different. So put that game in a neutral site or at Oregon, wherever the Pac-12 championship would be. That could go a totally different way. They're by no means out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of their big games they play are Washington State, Utah, USC, and Oregon State, which are tough. But
Yeah.
3 of those games
They're
are at
winnable.
home. 3 of
And
them
they're
are at
they're all
home. The only
winnable.
one that's on the road is at Utah, and I think that they match up nicely in that game. So I don't know. In terms of answering the initial question for USC,
Yeah.
I think you can also get to the Heisman conversation. For
Yeah,
Caleb.
we'll get to that Heisman too.
Yeah, I don't know. I would not be very happy if I'm a USC fan just because I would accept the reality that this team is not only not a playoff contender, but I don't think they're a Pac-12 contender anymore.
And then I assume you also don't think that he's Heisman favorite right now.
So I think it's a different question, but I mean, Heisman
We can
favorite,
answer
no.
later when we do your.
Yeah,
You got a
Heisman favorite, no, not at all. I think that game kind of screwed him. 3 picks on a big stage like that.
It's bad.
Yeah, you can't do stuff like that and expect to go back to back. But is he still QB1? And then he's going to go QB1 in the draft, of course. Of course,
Yeah.
he is.
Ryan,
So-
what do you think about this USC team? Still a Pac-12 contender?
I don't think so. I mean, we've gone over, like you said, every week the remaining schedule. I think if one team's going to come out, it's either Oregon or Washington. It would have to be, well, Oregon, if they continue to win out. I don't know if they can get 2 losses and then win and then make
Probably
it.
not.
But I did mention last week, I think there is a scenario where no Pac-12 teams get in because they keep beating themselves up.
Yeah.
Because all of them, for the final month, play each other. Every single ranked team plays every single ranked team. It's crazy. Like the Pac-12 schedule. I think there's a scenario where every Pac-12 team has 2 losses and that they get completely blank because it's a gauntlet, but it's too much of a gauntlet. And the voters are always going to favor an SEC team, especially if Georgia has 1 loss. Georgia's making it. Even if they have 1 loss and have SEC title. Whoever wins Ohio State, Michigan, if they continue to win and win the Big 12, they're in. If Florida State somehow stays undefeated and wins the ACC, they're
Well,
in.
that's getting a little easier because Miami is not what we thought, and we all know the holes in UNC. So Florida State, I feel like, has a pretty solid shot of going undefeated if they can win some of these like tough
Yeah,
games.
but I'm
at the
just
end of the
saying,
year.
like, putting a 2-loss Pac-12 team in the
I know.
top
Yeah,
4
it's hard.
when the committee has favorites already, I can't see it.
The only thing I'll say to that is we look at Washington's schedule. I think them and Oregon are both, somewhat favorable schedules, and Washington would have to lose 2 of these remaining games. And it's like, yes, they play USC, Utah, and Oregon State. Look, these are all good teams, mind you, and I'll talk more about Oregon State as a personal favorite to me, just because of how much I've tied my takes to them. But it's like they're probably beating Utah and Oregon State. USC could give them a run, but with how bad USC's defense is, like, are they beating them? I don't think so. So the only 1 loss I could see them taking is to Oregon. And then it's like last week what we talked about with Texas, Oklahoma. If they rematch and they win, then it's like you both are 1 loss. The resumes are similar. It's going to kind of be just who won the more recent matchup, and Washington might get shorted. But
that's 2 teams I totally forgot. Whoever wins that, if they go in,
yeah.
that's another team that could be a lot.
No, a 1-loss Big 12 champ. And, well, okay, look, so I guess we'll talk a little bit of playoff right here. If we just look at it right now, Georgia wins out because I think they're better than everyone in the SEC right now. Minus, like, Bowers would be back for the SEC championship game, presumably, if he doesn't sit out, right? He'll be back for that. I think they beat Bama. We'll talk about Bama later. They did not look great in the second half of that game against Arkansas. So I think they went out. They're in. FSU, I think, goes undefeated. I'm not doing an order. I'm just naming teams. FSU, I think, wins out. Undefeated ACC champ with good wins, over like 5 ranked teams by that time. They'll be in. And then it's Michigan. If they win out, they're in. And then, you're making a tough choice. Are you going to go one loss Big 12 champ if Oklahoma doesn't win out and Texas comes back? Or are you going to go one loss Pac-12 champ? And
I think the answer to that is going to be a one loss Pac-12 champ.
I think so too, because they have to run the gauntlet to get to where they get.
Yeah,
but can a one-loss Pac-12 champ exist?
Exactly.
Agreed.
I think if Oregon won this game at Washington, it's way more likely that we get a one loss or no loss Pac-12 team coming out of it.
But I also think Washington will win out until the Oregon game, and then either way,
I don't think Washington wins out.
Who do you think they lose to? USC, Utah, Oregon State. Which one of those teams will get them?
I mean, I could see them losing to Oregon State on the road.
I can see them losing.
Don't get me wrong; it's possible.
I can see them losing to 4 teams that they have left on their schedule. They can lose to USC, high-powered offense in a shootout.
USC,
we just saw what that high-powered offense did, though,
against a good Notre Dame defense.
Yeah, I agree.
It's on the road, but USC is kind of like the Hard Rock Stadium. It's not a college environment.
Yeah,
like at Oregon State, that place is going to be going crazy.
At Oregon State, at USC, you got Utah at home. I mean, all of these games are losable, and then Washington State is not a team to sleep on either. We know what Cam Ward can do.
I'm not going to sleep on them, but I'm getting off the train a little bit. I mean, I was one of them hyping them up heavy, but Cam Ward has not been himself these past few weeks. The offense has taken big steps back, and I don't think they're the same team.
The thing is, we know what they're capable of, what their ceiling is, and if we get their ceiling, that's a team capable of beating Washington.
I agree. With all that being said, though, I mean, look, every week now we're going to be on playoff watch, so these are going to be really intriguing combinations and conversations that we get back to, as we keep meeting up towards the end of the season. Talking about all these teams, though, that are ranked, unranked, and whatnot, does bring us, before we get to our third week of Sam standings, notes quickly, obviously, a fan favorite segment on here, along with Ryan's rankings. We are just going to take a look at the actual AP poll to see what our opinions on that are. Before I give my personal opinions. So let's take a look here now at this week's AP poll. As we see, Georgia's up top. Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, and Washington round out the top 5. I'll give you guys kind of a good look at everything that's going on here at the bottom, too. Ryan, I'll come to you first on this one. What are your thoughts on this week's AP poll? Do you like it? Do you have any issues with it?
I mean, for me, it's not even personal bias. And I know we've talked about it. The voters are always going to put Georgia as a 2-time reigning champ as 1. Michigan, based off respect from last year's 2. But I would like to see Washington or Oklahoma currently sit in a playoff spot. Meaning that I'm not saying at 2, but I'm saying
you're going to go 1 or 2.
No. It's just like Washington just beat Oregon in a crazy game, and Oregon was a number 8 team.
Yeah, I think you have a better argument for Washington than you do for Oklahoma.
Oklahoma beat number 3 Texas, who beat top 10 Alabama at the time. And neither of them are – it's just because of the names. Look at the 4 schools at the top 4, and then, Washington. Washington, they're not one of those notarized programs that, gets love. They're not. They're a smaller program. Not that they're small, but they're not Georgia or Ohio State. And then Florida State, I get it. They're undefeated, but
I would really like to see Washington 41-3. You can't really punish a team for winning by 40 points.
No, and that's the issue. But like, if
I did it. I'm a hypocrite. Today, I just did that. But
if the playoffs were today, and this was the 4, I wouldn't like it. I
agree. I mean, it's just hard because who are you punishing from here, right? Like,
Michigan.
I get it. You want to say Ohio State maybe had one too many close games for comfort. I could probably live with that, honestly. Even though they have obviously a good win over Notre Dame and a pretty solid win over Maryland. It's like, are you going to punish FSU for just winning by 40 with a win over LSU, who's sitting there at 19, and Clemson, that's still a very good win. They're like one of the first ones out.
But Sam, for me, Michigan's played no one all year. They haven't played a single
one. But they dominate who they play. And I get it. You could definitely make the argument to take them out based off resume. You're right. I don't think the committee would ever do it.
They don't play a game until the final 3 weeks, and they play Penn State and Ohio State.
Michael, what are your
Penn
thoughts
State's
on
team we
that?
haven't even mentioned. They're undefeated too. They could
Yeah, you're right.
huge game Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Sam, I want to close your ears. I kind of agree with Ryan's take. I think right now, if I don't know, it comes down to how you are, what your metric is, what
Yeah.
your foundation is. For me, I think Washington and Oklahoma deserve to be above Florida State.
No, not Oklahoma. I will hear you. I will 100% hear you out if you say Washington because it's valid. They did just beat Oregon. Oklahoma got one close win against Texas, and everything else has been a bunch of nobodies. The
Yeah.
resume is not there yet. They gotta get another good win under their belt before
But
I can justify
Well, the
putting
thing is,
them.
you guys don't have a win better than that win.
We have two that are quantity over quality in this case. LSU's
Clemson's
offense.
crazy. Flexing Clemson's crazy.
They're 27. It's not like that's a bad team. They're much different than that Duke
Yeah,
game.
and who else? Florida is 28. Like, I don't know. Like,
What does that have to do with it?
well, no, it's just like, yeah, Florida's not like been an
I get
amazing
it. No,
team
I
this
mean,
year,
but
but
look, LSU's offense puts up like amazing amount of numbers every week, and FSU completely stifled them to like 20.
I
What was it?
also
Just
think
24.
yes, but we can't be living in the past too much as well. Like, it's a week one game. Since then, y'all have regressed. That's true.
I don't know about that. I think we
No,
played
bro. Playing Boston College to the wire is definitely regression, bro.
That was one game though. You're gonna tell me that like all these other teams haven't played a close game?
LSU was also one game.
LSU, look, those are a win. I mean, we beat Clemson in Clemson, a true road win that you were getting on me about before the season. We just beat these teams by, all right, if you want to look at like regression, so was it progression winning by 40 this past weekend and letting up 3 points? I mean, you'll see this weekend against Duke. I think that's going to be a wake-up call.
Yeah, bro, there's no way you're flexing Syracuse right now, bro.
I'm not flexing Syracuse. I'm flexing the 40-point win we got over them, and that is still an above 500 team. And, you'll see Duke. We'll handle Duke, and we'll handle these teams the rest of the way. If you want to say Washington should be ahead of them, I can completely agree. Oklahoma, you got one good win. Great. We've got one really good win, too. We got a second one that I like better than any other game you've played also. So it's like, I don't know. Not yet. I'm not ready to go all the way there
One
yet.
thing I will say right now, and this is a bold take, but I'm going to say it. In a neutral site game, 5 through 9 would probably be favored against FSU.
Luckily, we won't have to see any of them until we play the teams that are up here in the playoffs. So,
but yeah, some other teams I think should be a little bit higher. I think Notre Dame should be a tiny bit higher.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think Tennessee probably a little bit lower. It's a big win they got, but
no, I agree with that too.
I don't know. And then
yeah, I think USC should be a little bit lower, honestly.
I think the rest of the way out is fine. I think Missouri should maybe be a little bit higher.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah, who did they lose to?
LSU.
Okay.
So they just have them there just head to head.
They beat Kentucky pretty convincingly. So
yeah.
And I want to say that the top 10 is going to get cleaned out a little bit this week.
It will. Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
And props, lurking all the way at the bottom. Props to Iowa with no Cade McNamara. They were like they were like plus 300 something underdogs to Wisconsin to go into Wisconsin and win. That's an impressive win.
You mean Iowa who's going to be playing either Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten championship?
With no quarterback, they're not going anywhere. I'm just saying, as far as last weekend goes, and props to
they're
Air
going to be in the Big Ten title game.
Maybe props to Air Force for being undefeated, cracking into the rankings too. Congrats to all of them.
Yeah,
but I mean, yeah. Look, we can go back and forth about FSU all day. The thing is, like, they've got the games down to stretch to prove that they deserve to be there. They play, they were ranked, not ranked anymore, but a decent Miami team, a ranked top 10 UNC team, a ranked Duke team. For our sakes, a little personal bias, we'll be hoping that UF is ranked by then so we can get a night game when we're there. But that's still 4 good teams, and then, whatever happens in the ACC championship, I guess that would be UNC. But it's like that'll give us 5 or so ranked wins by the end of the year. See where Clemson's at. So they have their chance to prove that they belong in this top 4. I mean, they'll prove it one way or another.
Yeah, I don't know that they got some big games coming up though. They can't get complacent. So
yeah, 100%. But with so that was the AP polls top 10. Now let me give you my top 10. A lot quicker form this week. I'm not going one by one. Just gonna kind of show you who fell out, and then I'll show you the rest after. But let's get straight to it. Our third week of Sam standings for week 7 of the college football season. Who fell out this week? Alabama. Yes, they came away with a win, but it was way too close. Jalen Milroe pulling an Anthony Richardson and going under 50% on the completion percentage. The 2-5 Arkansas almost got the best of you. I know KJ Jefferson is good, but it should not have been this close. And I just got to crack you out. This one, I have a personal love affection for this team. I've just kind of tied a lot of my takes to them. And it also is to get a little bit of a reaction. Maybe they don't 100% deserve to be here yet at number 10. But if you look down there, Oregon State cracks my top 10 this week. I love that team. But here's just the whole top 10 for you, just to kind of speed up this week's process. Michigan overtakes them after a dominant win. I did factor Brock Bowers' injury into dropping Georgia. That's most of why I put them at 2. Washington at 3 after a great win over Oregon. Florida State at 4. We just had our whole argument about that. So needless to say, we know why they're there. Ohio State at 5. They just keep doing their thing. Oregon at 6. I got to drop you a little bit for a loss, but I know how good of a team they are still, and I'm not going to punish them too much. Oklahoma at 7. You were on a bye week. You just kind of did your thing, chilled out. You got UCF this week. Let's see what happens. Penn State, it was UMass. What am I going to say? I can't really do anything with that game. It's basically a bye. Texas at 9. You were on bye. Can't really punish you too much. And then, like I just said, a little personal bias creeping in, but I love this team's defense. They are such a good defense. Great lines on both sides of the ball, but especially the O-line is awesome. DJU is an experienced quarterback who's playing much better this year than he has at Clemson. He's been in these big games. He knows how to handle them. They've got speedsters everywhere, a really good running game. Like, this team is legit. They have good wins. UCLA, look, I know we don't pay too much attention to a team like UCLA. That is a top 10 defense in the country with NFL guys all around it. It's a great defense. And he put the work in, and they beat UCLA. They've got good wins over UCLA. And Utah, their only loss is a really close loss in a shootout to a team that Michael was talking about, Washington State. And they're a one-loss Pac-12 team with a relatively simple schedule, coming up until those big games against Oregon. So this is a team that I really like. I think they've got a lot of potential, and that's why I put them at 10 this week. You got to punish Alabama for the close game, putting on upset alert by a 2-5 team. They can earn their way back in, but for now, this is my top 10. Ryan, I'm coming to you first on this again. What are your thoughts on this week's version of Sam Standings?
So it's just your current top 10, like if the playoffs started today, who you'd have top 10?
This is just like my personal 4. I think I don't know if this is who I would predict to be in the top 4 if the playoffs start today, but maybe it's the teams that I think are most warranting of it.
I mean, Michigan, I was just talking about maybe potentially moving them out. I mean, Michigan at 1, a little crazy.
I just think I know they haven't played anybody, but the people you can only play who's in front of you at the end of the day, and they're not getting any upset alerts. They're healthy, they're deep, and they're putting the points on everybody. They're putting the work in. They got 7 points dropped on them first last week. They got punched in the mouth, and they responded by scoring 50 straight, and that was pretty impressive to me. So just, based on the eye test and everything. Yeah.
That's where I think Washington should be.
Yeah, it's about where they deserve to be, I think, after a great win against a top 10 team.
And then Oklahoma at 7. I mean, you have Oklahoma below a team that is like Oregon lost.
So, I mean, yes, they lost, but that's where the eye test and all that comes into this. It wasn't a bad loss. You lost to the number 3 team by 3 points on a last-second missed field goal, and you looked great the whole game. I think Oregon would beat Oklahoma if they played today still. So there's a lot of different things that factor into it. But I know it's hard, but I've only seen Oklahoma do it once, and it was a rivalry game. And we always say about rivalry games, they make you act a little differently. That might not be who you really are, but the rivalry might boost it up.
Yeah, and I see 2 of those for Florida State that could go down.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You really never know, but I put my faith in them for now. Michael, what do you think? I know you might not agree with a lot of this, but we'll see.
So I actually, if this was a CFP like playoff ranking for who's getting in, I think your top 4 is right on. I think okay. You could swap the 1 and 2 maybe.
Maybe, yeah, you probably could, but I'm just saying that's where my personal opinion.
But yeah, there's no doubt these are the top 4 teams in a playoff setting. Yeah. If I'm an AP poll maker, I probably swap Florida State and Ohio State. That might be a little bit of bias. That's can also be up in the air. Yeah. And then maybe Oregon and Oklahoma you can swap potentially. I also kind of like putting Texas over Penn State.
They could. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, those are the 3 that I would consider changing if I'm an AP poll maker: Florida State and Ohio State, and then Oregon and Oklahoma, and Penn State and Texas. I think there are very clear tiers. Or I think you can look at it in terms of 5 tiers. There's Michigan and Georgia, then there's Washington and in its own tier, then Florida State, Ohio State, Oregon, Oklahoma, and then Penn State, Texas, whoever else. Like
Yeah.
it's,
No, I
I
agree.
think,
That's actually
I think there's a
I
little
can
bit of
agree
a
with that.
gap in some of that. I don't mind your take about putting Oregon State at 10. I don't. I think
I think it's a
it's
really
unique. I like
underrated
that.
team that people are sleeping on.
Yeah, they have a very solid resume, and their one loss is against a pretty solid Washington State team on the road. So, you got to
Watch
give it
out
to
for
them.
this
So
team, man.
it's a big win against UCLA.
Yeah, they can make some noise. And we were talking like the Pac-12 has some of the best defenses in the country right now. I know we don't pay a lot of attention to it, and we always talk about like, oh, all offense. Oregon State, UCLA, and Utah, maybe they're not top 10, but at the very least top 15 defense. These are three great defenses all in the Pac-12 that teams are going to have to go through. And Oregon State, I always kind of look at them as like the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football right now because they've got a pretty solid quarterback. Maybe that's not Kenny Pickett, but they've got a solid quarterback who's capable of distributing. They've got weapons on the defense, a great line. You can compare them to several other NFL teams, but I love the makeup of the team. I think they're a sleeper. I really do. But that is this week's top 10. I'm glad we're actually fairly in agreement. Of course, we're always going to argue about where Florida State is every week. And we'll keep seeing it. They've got a great game this weekend. So all these other top 3 teams better hold their ground because, playing a ranked opponent is always grounds to move up. Ohio State can move way up in the rankings. If they do what they should do against Penn State. Same can be said for Penn State if they do it to Ohio State. So there's going to be a lot of shakeup next week, like Ryan kind of mentioned earlier. But that kind of does it. Quicker format, putting all 10 teams in the same spot. With that being said, let's move on to the second half of this because we've got one last real game to talk about. And that was what I just mentioned. Alabama got dropped out of the top 10 because they barely escaped a 2-5 Arkansas, 24-21. And it's unacceptable. Jalen Milroe did not have a very good game, completing under 50% of his passes. You're not going to win that way. You're not. Michael, what was your take on this? Because I know you're big on this team. This is your national title pick, as I'm going to keep reminding you every week. What'd you think? What was your takeaways? Did you like what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to defend the take that they're title contenders. But at the same time, I hate saying a win is a win because I don't view every win equally. But at the end of the day, you do escape. Great teams find ways to win big games that are close. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that they're definitely underperforming for the talent that they have. There's some miscues. There's a lot of moving parts that aren't really fitting together super well right now. But I do think come playoff time, if they're a team that's in it, any team should be scared of them. If they're firing on all cylinders.
Can they make it to that playoff time?
That's the big question, right? Can they make it to that stage in the first place? And they're already a one-loss team. They would practically have to win out and win the SEC championship game. It's a tall task.
Still.
What?
You play Tennessee, LSU still before you even get to the.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have to win out and win the title. So it's a tall task. Do I think it's possible? Yes, I do. Because I think one of those games is at home, right? The Tennessee
they're both
game,
at home. LSU and Tennessee, because they were both on the road last year.
Yeah, they're both at home. I mean, the Iron Bowl's on the road, but I don't know about. It's a whole separate conversation. But it's not looking great for Bama. We're gonna really see what Bama team we're gonna get coming out of the season these next 2 weeks when they play Tennessee, LSU back to back. We'll really see what the true Bama is. We'll see if Nick Saban is the coach of old. But I mean, not the coach of old because he still is the GOAT, but like,
no.
We'll see if he's fallen off at all. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, and it's one thing if that game is being played on the road, but this is a game played at home where you're notorious for winning consistently, right? And you're barely scraping by an unranked Arkansas, right? It's not to say they're a bad team. They're a very talented team. They're a good team, but you got to put away teams like that if you want to compete at the highest level.
Ryan, what do you think? Give me your quick thoughts.
No, I honestly agree with everything Michael said. We'll see a lot in the coming weeks and see if this is going to end up a Alabama team fighting for a playoff spot or if this is an Alabama team that might barely be ranked to end the year and won't even maybe get a New Year's Six game.
Yeah, I agree. Michael, all right, so wrapping that up, just my quick thoughts. I think they're gonna lose one of these Tennessee LSU games, and that'll about do it for the year, no matter what they do the rest of the way. They didn't look pretty, like I already said a couple times. Jalen Milroe not looking good, but we'll see what happens. They've got the big games to prove it. Michael, staying in the SEC, you were in South Carolina this weekend for Gators against the Gamecocks. It was not Cocktober, indeed. Can you just give us a little story time? Tell us about that real quick before we get into our pick'em.
Dude, yeah, it was definitely an awesome experience. Got to spend it with two of my friends. Shout out Vinay, shout out MJ. We went to Atlanta the night before, which was super fun. And we got to get up early. The next morning, we got up at like 8 a.m., which was super difficult. Drove over there. We got to, our little hotel that was like a solid 20-25 minute drive from the stadium. So we took a super expensive Uber over there. And then we had to get out of the car and walk like 40 minutes because the traffic
Jesus.
in Columbia was god awful. I mean, I think we were all talking about this on the trip, but we took it for granted. We're a 3-minute walk from the stadium where I live.
That's awesome.
3-minute walk, and over there, it seemed like everyone.
I guess that'll be good for us in November, being a 3-minute walk away.
Oh, I
Just
know.
find
Dude.
the initial parking spot. Put the car for 2 days. That's
Oh, dude, you have to. Yeah, the parking is a whole other.
Hey, we had a good one last time I went. It was right by your apartment on the street.
Yeah, you just gotta get there early and just keep it there. Don't move it.
Sam, once we park Friday,
we're not moving. No,
for sure.
It's not moving.
but I mean, what a game, dude! Like we were row 5, mind you. So if anyone was watching the actual game, we were right behind the band. You could see us in a few of the clips. But I mean, the band brought back this historic chant called "You Move Back, You Suck" or whatever. It's like when the opposing team gets a penalty or whatever, we'll all like take our hats and like wave them. It was so sick getting to see all those fucking South Carolina fans, pardon my French, just like stare at us and not know what to do. And then they went up 10 with 9 minutes left in the game, and literally the entire stadium is doing the Gator chomp, trolling us. And I'm like, guys, I wouldn't do that if I were you. There's 9 minutes left. There's a lot of ball left to play. And we drive it down the field, score, get a 3-and-out, and then the rest is history. Mertz leads us down the field again. Oh, my goodness. Did you guys see the tip ball?
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude. Like, that was insane. It gave me Auburn vibes. They were playing like Auburn out there in the freaking Iron Bowl. And then we score. Ricky Pearsall over the middle, pump fake left, goes right. I mean, you couldn't write it much better. At South Carolina. And then what was really nice was afterward we went out and everyone was actually kind of nice to us. They're like, "Ah, good game, dude." And I know if we would have lost, we would have been getting trash talk a shit ton. So,
Speaking of Auburn, I didn't realize I'm wearing a thrifted Auburn shirt right now. Now that you mentioned that Iron Bowl.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah, no, I mean,
Temple Beth Emmett, no other than.
It was a heck of a time. I enjoyed it. Loved every moment of it. It was crazy, and I feel like being on a road game, it's a very different experience because it's a small group of your fans that are all kind of there together, and you're all in one group, and it's just us versus all these fans, and boy, let me tell you, seeing Sandstorm was insane. Like they had all those towels waving super crazy, like in unison. It was insane. All like 80,000 of them were doing that. So it was nuts. But I would highly
like your
recommend.
point about road games. I prefer road Dolphin games over home Dolphin.
Yeah,
games.
and that's one of the things I wanted to do.
Experience other cities. Especially, I like going to the cities where football is all
like
there
all
is.
Yeah.
It's
next year we got to make our way to one of these road Dolphin games. I said I was gonna do it this year, but they didn't have any good options. But next year we for sure got to get.
I'm gonna send you some clips, Sam, and we can post some of those. People can see. I'll also be going to the LSU game, so maybe I'll do a little vlog for that.
You're really traveling this season. You'll be in LSU for that. You'll be in Jacksonville for the Georgia game.
Jacksonville for the Georgia game. I think that's 9 games this season because we only had 6. It was 10 last season because I went to USF, Georgia, and A&M, and we had 7 home games. So
next year, UCF versus UF. I'll be sure to go to that one because I got a lot of buddies at UCF.
Is that at UCF?
I don't know. I think one of them. I think it is. I think that's at UCF, and I think you got Miami at home. If I'm not wrong.
Oh, dude, y'all got to come to that game. Miami at home.
Let me pull it up. I'm pulling it up right now.
It's our opener next year.
Yeah, UCF is the opener, I think.
No, we play Miami week 1, I think.
So Miami's in Ben Hill Griffin as the opener, and then UCF's in Ben Hill Griffin as well.
Oh, never mind. You get both at home. So I'll be
Yeah,
at Ben Hill
Florida
Griffin for that.
State.
I'd be so happy if we completed the sweep next year. Oh my goodness.
So you have 3, and
Next
also
year you'll have a true
uh,
freshman starting.
No, we won't.
Michael.
Who's starting?
Merch.
Hey, hold up, guys. So they have Miami at home, then they have Samford at home, then they have UCF at home, then they have Georgia in Jacksonville, then they have Florida State in Tally. So they don't leave, and then they have Kentucky. Or is this not in order?
It's not in
No,
order.
It-
Not all of them are
It's not
confirmed.
in order. They're not in order. I'm sorry. These are all the announced ones, but all their
Yeah.
announced ones are all in the state of Florida so far.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
that was great. Thank you for the story time, Michael. Real quick, because I know we all got to go soon. Let's get this upset alert done. This is our last segment of the day. Last week's upset alert, I went 1 for 2. I got the Kansas right. They did end up losing to Oklahoma State. I picked against one of my favorite teams, unfortunately, and said Oregon State would lose because I was starting to see what UCLA was. I was wrong. Ryan, a great performance, 2 for 2. Whether it's NFL or it's college, Ryan, you've been on fire. You said USC would lose, they lost. You said Kentucky would lose, they lost. And then Michael, the exact opposite. You said Washington would lose, they did not. And Tennessee also did not lose. That's a rough little performance for you. But as I pull up this week's games, because we have another loaded slate, Michael, I will come to you first. What are we thinking for upset alert this weekend? That is last week's. But as I pull up this week's, you can see all these great games. Who is on upset alert this week?
Okay, let's start at the top. I think Ohio State wins that game. Oklahoma wins. None of these teams jump out at upset alert teams. Oregon should be able to respond just fine. Who is the technical upset in Bama, Tennessee?
Alabama's -9.
Yeah, Bama wins outright.
You think they're on upset alert though? You think there's no chance they go down?
There's a chance, but I'm not gonna pick them again. I picked them last week and they disappointed me. Oh wait, no, I picked them to lose.
Yeah, you picked them.
Yeah, nah. Bama gets their vengeance. It's not at Tennessee. It's in Bryant-Denny. They're good.
I think I already know who you're gonna end up picking for upset
I
alert.
know who I'm gonna end up.
I'm just taking a wild guess. I think 2 people might be picking the same game. If I just had to grasp for straws here. Wow, I know where I'm going for upset alert though.
Okay. Let me make a bold prediction. Wait, who's favored in the USC Utah game?
Utah or USC -7, which is so bold.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. But
That's looking pretty enticing.
Yeah, you're gonna go with that one. You get first dibs, so you steal the.
So
Steal
if I pick something, it can't be repeated.
Yeah, we're not really gonna do repeat picks. It's kind of the fun.
All right, you know where I'm going.
I
I'm not
know
even gonna
exactly
say.
where you're going with both of these.
I'm going to Tallahassee,
Yeah.
Florida, and Duke is getting the upset. They covered. They win outright.
In Doak is crazy that you're picking that.
In
We don't even
Doak,
know if
bro.
Riley Leonard's gonna play. He's questionable.
Dude, I've been in Doak. Have you been in Doak?
No, I need to be there.
I've been in Doak, and it is not the swamp, dude. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, Swamp is next level. I'll give you that. And then I'm guessing you're going USC for your second one.
Yeah, give it to me.
Ryan, give
Honestly,
me your 2.
If I was a smart man, I'd probably go Tennessee, but I'm gonna leave that for someone else.
Ryan, where are you going with it? Well, Tennessee's not favored though.
Well, yeah, I know.
yeah, no, I was gonna say Alabama's on upset alert.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's just the obvious. And then for my second pick, I mean, obviously, I'm a Florida State hater.
Yeah.
He also picked Utah, so kind of.
You're not left with much.
You know what? I'll go Penn State, beating Ohio State.
Would you like
Yeah,
to make a trade?
that's
Would you like
what
to
I was
make a
gonna
trade? We can make the first trade ever in upset
An
alert
upset
history.
trade? Have
Upset
we ever
history.
seen this before?
This is So this is just because I'm a nice guy, but I'm willing to accept the upset of Auburn over Ole Miss if you would like to take over the USC Utah game.
Wow. Ryan, are you taking him on that?
Auburn ain't beating Ole Miss. I'll keep my locks.
Damn. Okay.
Wait, what? I would be taking Auburn over Ole Miss, and then you would get USC versus
No, it's
Utah.
fine. I like my picks.
Remember, we are keeping track of these picks too. Same thing we do with NFL. We are keeping track of this to see who wins in the end of the season. I'll count
He had all
the
the grabs, So
the current
no,
in progress
guys.
results will be posted soon. The in progress results.
The way we should be doing it is in like an actual ESPN league. These upsets are just huge. I'm picking big upsets, dude.
Well, me and you are in the ESPN league, Michael.
Yeah, let's pull up those numbers.
We'll stay here for now.
Yeah, FSU and Duke is not the smartest choice for an upset, but I'm gonna pick it because it's fun.
Yeah. For me, I know you got a little personal bias in there too. For me, just looking at, I gotta take into account what's left also. Look, just because of what I said, I got some friends at UCF that I'm gonna be holding this over, and I've been kind of getting on Oklahoma a little bit because they're threatening FSU. Oklahoma on upset alert. UCF is gonna cover that spread. In Norman, we're gonna see something. I think they're gonna be overlooking UCF. I'm putting Oklahoma on the upset alert, and then I will go. Not a lot left after that one. Oof. I guess just because no one else took it and it's here. I agree with you, Michael. I think they should be on upset alert. Auburn over Ole Miss, and that is my 2. So we will meet back this time next week to see who's where. With that being said, does anyone have any last thoughts before I wrap this episode up?
The Florida Gators are going to upset the Georgia Bulldogs in Jacksonville.
Well, that's your preview for a few weeks from now.
You heard it here first. Feels bad for Brock Bowers. Hope he recovers quickly. However, this is not a bad thing for the Florida Gators. That is what
Ryan, you got anything?
I mean, I think Ohio State could lose.
I think so too.
Also, there is a path for Florida to make.
Oh my.
Well, one more quick thing before we go. We all
I just want the night game, I just want the night game, man. Like I'm not going that crazy yet.
I think y'all rooting for them is why we won on the road.
We all took a dump. Yeah. I was rooting for them too. I mean, I want the night game.
The only 2 road games we've won in Billy Napier's entire tenure, I've been at A&M and South Carolina.
Gotta do what you gotta do. We all took a dump on USC, but they are still technically undefeated in the Pac-12. However much longer that lasts, I don't know. So they do have a path to the Pac-12 championship because they would make it over Oregon right now because Oregon has 1 Pac-12 loss. I will end on that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you both for taking your time to be here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment what you want to see more of. As always, turn those notifications on. And until next time, watch out because we do have a UFC special coming to you for the fight this weekend, and we have a lot of big stuff on the way. Peace out.